Warren Buffett, the American businessman magnate, investor, and philanthropist, has long been known as one of the most interesting and impressive investors in human history. He's widely known for sticking to value investing, being fairly frugal despite his incredible wealth, a whopping $104 billion, thank you very much, and being known by the worldwide media as the Oracle or Sage of Omaha, the city where he was born in 1930. So if anyone knows how to make millions with only a few bucks, it's surely Warren Buffett. And you'll get that Warren Buffett know-how in this video. All you have to do is like, share, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. That way you never miss out on future updates. The chairman of Berkshire Hathaway since 1970, Buffett is still active in his sector even at the advanced age of 90 years old. But how exactly does he manage to make so much money with very little? Most people start with very little when they begin investing. But how do you go from that to having billions in the bank? Here's another lesson on investment from the best. Buffett follows the Benjamin Graham school of value investing, wherein investors look for securities with prices that are unconscionably low compared to their intrinsic value. Now, of course, this is not necessarily a great thing to try to quantify, but it is possible when you try to estimate a company's fundamentals. When Buffett met Benjamin Graham in 1951, he entered one of the most prolific periods of his career, and over the next 10 years, his returns averaged around 50% a year. He was working with an exceptionally small amount of money, so he would go through hundreds and hundreds of small businesses looking for companies that he could invest a small amount into, that were, in his own words, ridiculously cheap. Buffett continues that, quote, as the money increased, the universe of possible ideas started shrinking dramatically. If you're working with a small amount of money with exactly the same background, I think you can make very significant sums. But as soon as you start getting the money up into the many millions, the curve of expectable results falls dramatically. When you're working with a small sum of money, you'll find something that promises very large returns compared to what you can deliver with large sums of money. End quote. Buffett is concerned with the intricacies of supply and demand that are inherent in the stock market, though. In fact, he barely concerns himself with the activities of the stock market at all. As he paraphrased once from a Benjamin Graham quote, in the short run, the market is a voting machine, but in the long run, it's a weighing machine. No, when Buffett invests, he looks at the overall potential of a company as a whole, but he's not investing for capital gain. When Buffett invested in a company in the early days, he would be looking for ownership in high-quality companies that are highly capable of generating earnings. He isn't concerned with whether the company will be recognized by the stock market. He's only concerned with how well the company can make money. Buffett maintains that the best way to get outsized returns on investments is to look at the smaller cap companies that aren't as popular as the bigger ones more infamous on the stock exchange. One of the biggest advantages of investing into smaller operations instead of larger ones, and we're talking about companies with a value south of $1 billion here principally. This is what you won't have to compete with the sharks or the huge investors like Buffett himself or his vice chairman Charlie Munger. While these type of investors are going after the gigantic yet somehow still undervalued companies, the smaller companies with the potential to grow so large unnoticed, and that's where opportunity knocks. However, it's not exactly easy to find a small to medium-sized company that is undervalued, so you have to be meticulous. As Buffett himself did, you will have to pore through thousands of companies to find the perfect match. Buffett's process to finding low-priced value is to ask himself a few questions when he evaluates the relationship between a stock's levels of quality and the price. He looks at a company's potential for ROE, return on equity, which reveals the sort of rate at which a shareholder earns income on their shares. But you can't just look at the current year. You have to go back at the last 5 to 10 to get a good idea of the company's ROE potential. He also looks at the debt-to-equity ratio, which he considers carefully, favoring a small amount of debt so that the earning growth gets generated by shareholders' equity rather than borrowed money. The debt-to-equity ratio is useful as it shows the proportion of equity and debt that the company uses to finance its assets. Obviously, as debt must be repaid with interest, it is unlikely that a company funded mostly through debt is going to make an attractive investment opportunity. Profit margins are another way of making sure that the company is worth an investment. By dividing net income by net sales over the company's 5 years or so of history, you can ascertain whether a company is executing its business well or not. But of course, increasing margins mean that management has been highly efficient at controlling their expenses. Buffett also tends to favor companies that have been around for at least 10 years, and as a result, most of the technology companies that have had their IPOs, initial public offerings in the past decade, wouldn't have a chance in Buffett's book. He has said that he doesn't really understand the mechanics behind many of today's technology companies and only invests in businesses that he really truly understands. The man is 90 after all, so no one can be expected to deviate that much from what they already know. But one thing that he does know is that companies that have gone public must file regular financial statements, and those documents can help you understand and analyze important company data. This helps you to choose when you are making investment decisions. One of the most obvious things that investors should consider is the cost. Is it cheap? This sounds patronizing maybe, but it's Buffett's most important skill. By identifying the company's intrinsic value by analyzing a number of fundamentals like earnings, revenues, and assets against its liquidation value, meaning what the company would be worth if it was sold, Buffett can then compare its value to its current market cap. His true skill is definitely steeped in his incomparable skill at accurately determining this intrinsic value, and much of his success can be attributed to this ability. The unfortunate downside of this is that while it's absolutely possible to describe the sort of criteria that he uses, it's very difficult to understand how he became so skilled at calculating this value. It's a lot more than just being a bargain hunter. It seems to come from the fact that he has remained so utterly down to earth for his entire life. He lives in a modest home, he doesn't collect cars, and he doesn't splash around insane amounts of money. This same attitude he brings into his investment attitude: practicality, pragmatism, and realism. Many investors could stand to learn a thing or two about adopting this kind of attitude, as while many criticize the idea of value investment Buffett style, it's hard to argue with his long career of success. Speaking of success, Warren Buffett surrounds himself with people of high IQ, like Bill Gates. Buffett and Gates are the second and sixth wealthiest people in the US, per Bloomberg Billionaires Index, and it just so happens that they are also best friends. Their friendship has been strong for 30 years, and they're known to enjoy relaxing together and goofing around. They both have a strong appetite for reading and sharing reading material. They've also been described as a tag team on political and philanthropic causes. Plus, they have mutual mentors. Gates and Buffett's friendship dates back to July 5, 1991, when Gates' mother, Mary, invited the late Meg Greenfield, a Washington Post editor, to her home. Greenfield was eager to bring her friend Buffett with her and introduce them. Aside from the mutual friendship and mentors, their meeting was almost canceled because Bill Gates didn't want to take the day off. However, Mary Gates pressed her son to join. Later, Gates wrote about the meeting, stating, quote, "What were he and I supposed to talk about? PE ratios?" The only reason he decided to come was because Greenfield was also bringing the late Post publisher, Katharine Graham, and he was interested in the Post's history. End quote. But as fate turned out, they became good friends. So what do you think about Buffett's career and investment style? Are you considering taking a page out of his book? Sound off in the comment section below. And if this video brought value to you, thumbs up to show your support, subscribe, and share with fellow investors, and ring the notification bell. That way you never miss out on future updates. Until next time.